And one of the things I can bring is I'm not a politician.
No, well,
so I'm more Bullworth than a politician. So I'll tell the truth.
Hi, I'm Geddy Schweikauskas as usual, and doing a podcast with Carl Frankel, who was recently elected to the Common Council. There was a turnover this year in that there are 4 new council persons.
Right.
And I'm interested in what that might mean.
Well, and yeah, it's an interesting thing coming onto this. I'm just, you know, as well as I do, Geddy, I've been here for 25 years, I've been very active in the community, but I've sort of steered clear of official formal politics because it's just my way to do it on my own on the outside. So I'm actually really looking forward to learning more about how city government works and the ins and outs of trying to make sausages and trying to, more than that, actually bring a larger vision to the community that we can really all unite around and get something done with.
Well, if you're a newbie,
And I am.
you bring certain things you know, but you must have had some inkling politically of before going for this.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying I was totally ignorant of what was going on. Obviously, I track what's going on and I follow politics, and I was, very present for Shane Gallo's rather misbegotten term as mayor, and supported Steve Noble when he came in. And I think one reason I agreed to do this was because this is a Democratic town. We have a strong majority. So if we can only learn not to fight each other, we can actually get some stuff done.
Yeah. But as usual, when you have a one-party state, as it were,
Right.
You have factions within that party.
You sure do.
And it does seem from the discussion of the budget and certain other issues that you're not. I'm not exaggerating when I say there's some deep disagreements on the council.
I think there are deep disagreements on the side, but even more, I think that although we try to think of Kingston as sort of separate, its own little entity apart from the larger political dynamics in the country and the world, we are in a time where the preferred mode of discourse is demanding and attacking. And that's true, and name calling and making other people wrong. And I think that has trickled down into our little micro culture here. And I really regret that very deeply, because you can't get anything done when you're calling the other people name. People just get hunkered down into their and harden in their positions, and it makes compromise, change, and just dialogue and learning really difficult. So
I don't think it's quite come to that extreme confrontation, in that listening to for instance, to the budget meetings and various other things, I sense that there's a disagreement on certain parts, but also an agreement on others.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not suggesting that. I am suggesting that I've had some conversations with people on the Democratic side that did not have the kind of that were unpleasant, in a word. And I don't really see the need for that. I do think that people who ultimately have the same goals should be able to resolve their disagreements in a cordial way that optimizes the chance for some sort of accord that takes the best of A and B and makes it happen, as an integrated concept.
Well, as you know, the constitutional fathers set up a balance among the different bodies, so that the legislative, the Common Council, and the executive, the mayor, have kind of different power sources and are different from each other,
right? And
often can be critical of each
Absolutely.
other.
And well, they should, and we need the division of power. I guess I would just say that look, nobody's perfect. I think Steve has made some mistakes, but as the mayor, I think on balance, he's done a great job. And I think that if the only legacy he had, and his other legacies, was cleaning up the Broadway corridor, I drove down there the other day and I thought, wow, that's really an accomplishment to have done that.
I did too. I was one of the casualties, or rather my vehicle was one of the casualties of the of the pothole era.
Right.
And it is a pleasure. And for me, I like particularly to see the trees. I like to see the world come back to life that way.
And the lighting. I actually like the street lights. You go down there and you have a span, and it really has, one of the things, I moved here in 1997, Getty, and I was just talking to Don Tollerman about this. I moved here because I fell in love with the Pike Plan. It doesn't mean that the Pike Plan has to stay. It doesn't mean it's right, but I fell in love with the Pike Plan because it had romance in it. The Pike Plan comes down, we want to have something to replace it that has romance. And what the Broadway corridor, in a rather modest way now, has romance. It just has this nice vibe, and it doesn't feel run down, it doesn't feel sad, it doesn't feel depressed. It feels like it's a place, it attracts in a good way. And I think that's a fabulous accomplishment.
It's interesting to see the public sector took the initiative there.
Right.
And now it remains to be seen how the businesses along the strip take advantage of that and become part of it, and kind of become more aligned to the needs of the new Kingston.
Absolutely. And another issue that's up for me when I drive that, every time I drive there, I think about the bike lanes. I think about the accidents and the danger and the problems. And I read letters about opposing the bike lanes. And I cannot think about that without thinking that people resist change. When the Rotary came in at the bottom of Colonel Chandler Drive, it's going to be awful. It's great. When the Rotary came in at the Thruway, it's going to be awful. It's great. And I think a bike lane is a great example of when a vision of the future is being brought into the present. Bike lanes, to me, speak about sustainability and sustainable transport. I cannot think of bike lanes outside of that context.
Right.
And so I really applaud the kind of political courage it took to put those in, despite the inevitable objections that would be coming in.
Well, I think that the mayor did a good job when 3 people died in bicycle. That's statistically almost impossible.
It's heartbreaking.
That the mayor said, what we need is an education program.
Right.
That is, it doesn't do any good to have bike lanes where people are killed on them.
It's a bad idea.
And that I'll give him that one.
Yeah. So I think, it's obviously you don't want to start a campaign with bike lanes with people dying. That's obviously not desirable. But on balance, at the end of the day, I am pro bike lane, and I obviously you have to mourn what happened. But this is a good thing, and it sort of speaks to the future, a vision of the future that really appeals to me.
Tell me a little bit about how you became moved from being a close observer to the political scene to running for office. How did that happen? Tell me about how you
happily. I have been approached over the years to do this. Before, I don't know how long Coop was the alderman for Ward 2, but maybe 6 or 8 years, something like that.
At least 8 years, I think. Yeah.
And so when he was deciding to run, I was approached by the Democratic machine, such as it is, to be the candidate. And I said I would think about it. And then
who was the machine?
It was Tom Hoffey and the Breakfast Gang.
Okay.
People joined for breakfast. I think Brad Will was part of it.
Okay, and where do they have breakfast? Different places?
No, actually, this one was a regular at Uptown Coffee.
Okay.
Not Uptown Coffee, at, I'm just blanking, Outdated, rather. Outdated. They met once every,
right.
It was a different group than the weekly meetings that are happening now. Anyway, I was approached. I said, I'd think about it. I wasn't really up for it. As you know, I had something called Carl's List for many years, and we had community parties, and it was sort of like this apolitical way for people to get involved. So I knew a lot of people, and I was involved politically without being involved in the official political scene. So I was known as the mayor of Uptown Kingston back then, just very informally among friends. So I think I was a logical person to approach. And when Doug said, no, I'll do it, I said, you can have it. And then when Doug decided to step down this year, I think they created a short list of people and approached them, and I was on the short list. And it worked for me. I had, back then, I sort of wanted some time off of being a social networker. And so I sort of went underground for a while. And when it came back, I had some time on my hands, and it was just a good time. And I thought, we all have kind of duties as citizens, civic responsibilities. And this felt like a good time to step forward and try to do my civic part by contributing to this city that I really have fallen in love with.
So have you been having coffee with the gang since then?
On some occasions, there's this fine line to draw about a question to ask about why is it that one does this. I am doing this to help Kingston. My social life is full, so I'm not actually seeking a social community to be part of. I'm a very active tennis player. I have a big tennis community. I have a big life outside of all this. So my focus is on getting stuff done, and that's really, if it helps me get stuff done, I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, as you say, getting stuff done means sausage making.
It sure does.
In
it
politics,
sure does.
and
it sure does. It sure does. So whatever it takes, I will do within reason. And within reason is because we're not really strongly incentivized to put lots of hours in as older people, which is unfortunate.
So, do you see yourself as a healing force, or somebody who can bring different people? Will bring different.
That's a great
people
question,
in the political process together.
It's a great question. I posted on Facebook when I was elected that I think I see 3 roles for myself.
Mm-hmm. I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, pastoral, which is maybe why I asked the question, which is really, communities have a soul and people have souls. I've already had people come up to me because I have now a political status, telling me their unhappiness about A, B, C, or D. Not necessarily political, it can be personal too. So it's pastoral, it's political, which is about bringing a vision. And it's also to Kingston. I've been working in sustainability for 20 some years, or really 30 some years now. And so I really believe we need to get locally self-reliant in and around issues of sustainability. So there's that, and that involves sausage making. And as far as the sausage making is concerned, I'm really looking forward to doing that because I actually believe that I have sort of a good ability to problem solve when there are things that seem intractable. There's often another sort of out of the box, if you excuse the cliche way, to get things done. And I have a very lateral brain, so I tend to go there. So I'm hopeful that I can be helpful with that. And then the last piece of it is constituent services. There are potholes that need fixing literally and figuratively, always. And I really enjoy being in service to people. So if somebody calls me and says, I have this problem, I actually will quite enjoy the opportunity to remedy it if I can.
Now you have 5 of the 9 aldermen are going to remain.
Right.
So you have 4 new ones. That's always a rocky road to some degree, or a process. I don't. It can be smooth. It can be, but it's. How well do you know the 5 who are in?
I'm just getting to know people. I mean, I'm literally sitting down and having sit-downs to meet people now. Mm-hmm. And I'm actively seeking not only to sit down with the various alder people, but also the players who are influential. Don Tollerman and I talked yesterday at length about some things, but he's outgoing. He's not going to be a common council, but he's a person with ideas and influence and kind of a vision. So I really welcome that conversation. I'm sitting down with 2 of the new council people tomorrow just to...
Who's that?
Barbara Hill and Niama Muhammad.
Okay, so there's one more newbie who's a Democrat who won as a Republican.
And I'm sitting down separately with him. We're back and forth about sitting down Monday. Uh-huh. So the first stage of this for me is about relationship building. You're not going to get anything done without collegiality, cordiality, and a measure of trust. Yeah. So the first thing to do is say, who are you? How can we work together? How can we make sure that we get along? And once we establish that foundation, then that becomes possible to get things done. Mm-hmm. So that's really what I'm seeking to do. 2 things now: get to know my colleagues and educate myself about the issues.
Yeah. Clearly, there's something that could be improved in the relationship between the mayor and the council. There has been talk of a new kind of zoning,
right?
Which is kind of interesting, I think. Right. And I suppose that the the mayor keeps talking about being a strong mayor system.
Right.
And there are certain tools in the Constitution of Kingston that kind of speak for a strong mayor.
Right.
That is, if they turn down the budget, then the budget goes in automatically.
Right.
And stuff like that. So that's sort of an interesting power to have.
It is. Are you asking for a comment from me about that?
By all means, yeah. But I wonder if you see any revisions as useful at this point, because I don't know whether the conflicts could be smoothed down or resolved by a change in the relative powers of the both, like they were fighting over whether the Common Council should have an attorney of its own.
Right.
And I think that the mayor didn't like that, but he went along with it. And to my knowledge, they haven't used anybody for that, so it hasn't come to that.
This is there are a lot of issues, and I say I'm just climbing the learning curve. Or more specifically, as you were talking, I was actually thinking I'm sort of like a hawk, and I'm circling up, and I'm coming down as I get more and more familiar. But on issues like this, I'm really not ready to speak an opinion yet, because I'm still got a 20,000-foot view, and I want to be in the trees looking at it. Just like one managing principle is, the person who's got their head in the engine is the person who makes the best decisions, not the person who's standing on the porch going, look at that, look at that, look at that. And I'm still on the porch. So time will come when I will have strong opinions about this, I'm sure, but I'm not there yet.
Well, the analogy of a hawk is interesting, because a hawk circles and circles and circles and then sees the prey and then goes down and gets it.
Right.
And it's an amazing natural process.
It is. I don't think of myself as a hawk in the terms of snatching prey. I hope it doesn't come to that case.
All right, so you're a vegetarian hawk.
I'm a vegetarian hawk. Right. I'm an eagle-eyed hawk. How
okay.
about that?
Okay, yeah. Well, it's very interesting to watch them, to see them in the sky,
Man, there's so many miracles out there.
Yeah. Well, the new Kingston is tangible. New people. I don't know what the proportion is of new people to long-timers, but clearly the newcomers have increased. And one of the questions that comes up, and one of the problems that the society has, is how do you take care of the old-timers who are low in means?
That is the issue. I mean, this is, we are a case study in the challenges of gentrification right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm in the heart of it, because my ward is Ward 2, which is sort of the heart of gentrification, right?
Yes.
Well, that's happening everywhere, but this is sort of the hub. So we absolutely unequivocally need to look for them that ain't got as much as those people coming in, right? And that is absolutely at the very top of my priority list. I'm already giving thought to sort of ADU and affordable housing issues. And again, how can we have kind of some, I was going to say breakthrough, but people associate that with COVID now. How can we have some breakthrough thinking about how to address these issues in ways that are effective and make a difference? One of the challenges, I think, is that a lot of people who will give lip service to the need for affordable housing, but when it comes to actually doing something in their communities that might actually make that happen, go, no, not here. So there's this kind of contradiction in a lot of people about noble intentions, but less noble choices. So we have to work through that little.
Have you talked much to Dennis Doyle?
Not yet, no.
No. Dennis is a very interesting guy. He's a planning professional, and housing has been central to him. What do you think of RUPCO?
I'll tell you what I think of RUPCO, but I'll tell you what it's not based on. It's based on watching them for 20 years do stuff, and 30 years. Mm-hmm. And my take is that it's an essential and useful institution. I think Energy Square is a fabulous build. I think Lace Mill was great. So what I know is very positive.
Yeah.
I don't know of any secrets behind the fence, but what I know, I'm all for Kevin O'Connor and the work he and Repco have been doing.
Yeah. The reason I asked the question is that sometimes the question comes up of whether the city should do something by itself, the city government,
Right.
and when it should use Repco. And I've been kind of in favor of them using Repco where possible, because I think Repco, like Family of Woodstock, is an effective organization, and I'd like to see it a more part of the.
It's more effective, and my understanding is that in some situations you actually have to run money through nonprofit. You can't do it yourself as a city.
That's
so
true.
You're sort of like pushed legally into partnerships, which is one reason you have them and why they're so useful.
Right.
Yeah. I just talked to Kevin about. I sat down with Kevin O'Connor, who runs Repco, as you know, a couple of days ago, and we had a talk about affordable housing, because this is absolutely the heart of what we have to be looking at now.
Yeah. Well, he's a remarkable visionary.
He is. He is.
He makes a CEO of that organization, which has, 30, 40 people, a bunch of whom have worked in the city before.
It's great, and we had a really, I thought, productive conversation. I'm really just trying to learn at this point. Ideas come from immersion, so I'm trying to immerse myself and come up with some ideas, and I have some ideas, and I'm not being specific now just because I'm not in office and it's not time, and I have to think it through, and I have to get all the pieces in place before I go public with them. But I think there's some things that we might be able to do as a community that really might help address the issue. Mm-hmm. So I'm hopeful that we can make that happen.
Okay. It'll be really interesting to see what kind of an effect you have, what you can contribute, because listening to you, I'm not sure what you're going to contribute. You're obviously an open mind, which is very helpful.
Do you have some specific questions for me, Getty? And I will try to answer them as straight ahead as I can. One of the things I can bring is I'm not a politician.
No, well,
so I'm more Bullworth than a politician. So I'll tell the truth.
I'm not a politician either.
Right.
So one reason, I believe a journalist should not ever be a politician.
Sure.
You go one path or the other.
Right.
But and since you're kind of purport to be one of us rather than one of them, I accept that and say, well, I'm not going to ask you deep political questions because
you're welcome to ask them. I just might not have answered.
That's right.
That's all. Because I try not to bullshit myself or others, frankly, and I also believe in staging things. You speak when you actually have enough information to have an opinion. I know that is not what politicians do usually, but I actually believe in that. So I think, but I will tell you, just in terms of character and history and background, some of the things that I do, and this is just for people who want to know who this guy is. I have a 30-year background in sustainable development. I wrote a book that won a national commendation on social enterprise, which is the term of art that's used for socially responsible businesses that have a triple bottom line: people, planet, profits. So that is very deep in my background. I've run small businesses. I continue to run a small business. I am a writer. And I think my gifts are ability to listen, lateral thinking, and an inherently visionary, high-level take on the world and on interpersonal relations. So when people are down in here grappling and brawling and fighting, I'm kind of up here in a witness mode, and that allows me sometimes to encourage people to step out of the mess and relate as a community rather than as people down in the mud, tussling similarly with ideas and visions. If somebody goes A and B, sometimes there's a C out there that people just aren't thinking about. And my brain, I once did a vocational aptitude test, and I got in the 6th percentile on spatial relations, right? I should not be an architect, but I was in the 99.9th percentile on something called ideaphoria, the quantity of ideas you can produce in a given amount of time. So I'm really good, if I say so myself, at coming up with ideas that maybe dingbat, but they may not be. And you have 20 ideas, one of them might be good, right? So I think I can bring some creative solutions possibly to some of the dilemmas. I just had, to give you a specific example of this, I've been talking to people about the just cause legislation that's on the table. And right now, basically, the recourse for unhappy landlords is to go to court. Does it make sense? And courts are terrible institutions for providing prompt, fair remedies. They lag out in time. They require affidavits from neighbors that people might not be able to give. So I was thinking, why not have an arbitrator who steps in and manages just cause processes? So you just sidestep the courts, part of the rental contract they do. Maybe this would be an efficient response. I'm now speaking a bit ahead of myself because I really haven't thought it through. But this is the sort of like, we have this bill out there and there are problems on both sides. Maybe there's a third way we can do that can actually help solve the problem. Right. That's the kind of thing I hope to do.
Well, yeah, I would hope that a good judge can do some of that, but you're right. An arbitrator, I think, would be a better way of dealing with it.
Right. You sidestep a lot of the legal formalities that just consume time, energy, and money.
You sound like the offspring of a philosopher.
Imagine that, Getty. Imagine that. I am a philosopher. I've always been a philosopher. I just don't have the official platform.
Okay.
I've written books that are philosophy.
And tell people who your father is.
Well, my father was. My father is or was a man named Charles Frankel, who was a very prominent 20th century philosopher. He was a professor at Columbia. He was Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs in the White House, in the State Department under Lyndon Johnson. He was kind of like a big deal. And I got his genes, and here I am.
There you are.
Here I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there he is flying around at a considerable altitude, ready, saying, ready to pounce, but only in a benign purpose.
Benevolent. Can we go with benevolent?
Benevolent is not as good. Benevolent means it's a kind of
condescending.
Okay, noblesse oblige kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
And we don't.
Then I retract.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, editor, for helping my.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks.